Hello and welcome back to another video of my devlog series on how I created my dream game. It's been an incredible 6 months filled with endless fun, challenges and triumphs. Today I'm thrilled to share the progress made on my game using Unity. This video is a compilation of all my devlogs together so you can enjoy everything in one single session. From the very first line of code to the design and gameplay mechanics, this journey has been a whirlwind of learning and growth. Each passing day brought me closer to realizing the vision I had for this game, and I can't wait to walk you through the evolution it has undergone. We will delve into the foundations laid in the early stages, witness the art come to life, explore the immersive worlds that have been crafted and dive into the complexities of programming that have made this game a reality. This devlog series has been a chronicle of my dedication, passion and determination to bring this dream to fruition. Join me as I showcase the progress, the setbacks and the invaluable lessons learned over the past 6 months. So without further ado, let's embark on this exciting journey and witness how far this game has come. Let's dive into the world I've been crafting with Unity piece by piece to bring my dream game to life. Hey, in this video I'm going to dump my old game to start a new game dev project. Let's go! But why am I throwing away my game? Well, because it really sucks. Okay, well, from the outside it actually doesn't look all that terrible. You could cut down trees, mine minerals and pick up things. It had a completely procedurally generated world and a day and night system. But honestly, the code base was trash. And with trash I mean true rubbish and honestly. So let's start a new project like every week. Woo! I already imported some assets from Broken Vector, love these assets. Maybe I replace them later in the process, but for now they stay. Because oh, look at these gorgeous assets. The trees, the rocks. You can see the grass and the water shaders I have from an old project, which I imported from an even older project. And from there I stole it somewhere on the internet. I don't know where exactly, but dear creator, if you see this, nice. Kudos to you, XOXO. But wait. Do you really want to start a new project? Throw some assets in the scene again without any plan, you little No, of course. I have a plan. First, I'm creating a test world. This test world is just there to make sure every asset I want to use has the correct size, looks good and fits perfectly into landscape. Then after that I care about the character. But you have to consider everything. Walk, jump, characters, rolling, slow handling. Okay, you got me. I just used the Unity starter pack. It's okay, fine. God. Okay, now that I created the character handling all by myself, third, I implement the basic mechanics and systems. Inventory, tree cutting and general material gathering. This will be the most fun part because I love debugging and shit and hating my life. And then, when I got some of the basic mechanics, I can start to write the story and create the main world. Because then I have a set of modules I can stick together like a Lego house to create riddles and ways to proceed during the entire game. Fuck yeah, Lego! So, how about a little time lapse in which you see how I failed to create a beautiful landscape? Let's go! So, step 1 is done, the test world is ready and looks incredibly awful. This is how it has to be. Yeah, here I'm walking around a bit and walking on hills and walking on grasses and whoa, here's a bit buggy and so on and so forth. Here it looks very much like outdoors, yes. Okay, let's take a look. First I added localization to my game. I added it quite early to not update a shitload of UI elements at the same time. Because I know this will surprise you, not a native speaker. Adding localization was super easy and absolutely intuitive.
2,000 years later.
After finishing up the first text, I also created the first steps of a really simple HUD system. Nothing fancy, just to show up text when walking on a pick-upable item. It also took me some time to figure out how to get the key binding for a specific action with the new Unity input system. But here it is. You can now walk towards an item and label elements will guide you how to pick it up. The next new thing is that you can actually pick it up. I created the base of an inventory system without any UI. This is just the core and will probably be updated more and more. It's so easy peasy lemon squeezy, just a list of models that holds the slot data. Which slot number, which item, and what is the item amount. That's it. I also created a health system, so I can just attach this super cool interface to any object and boom, health. But just like the inventory system, this is just the core functionality. I also want to add a nice UI to the HUD and also have more than only a health bar. What about status effects? I think I'm gonna add them in the next few weeks, or month, or in my next project, because I also will quit development on this project. Next thing I created in the past 2 weeks was, like every other stuff I made, just the core system of the attack controller. This only will be used for environment attacks like gathering stones, wood, minerals and things like that, not for enemy attacks. So maybe the naming could be confusing, but I will change that later when it's time for it. You can punch now every hittable interface in the scene and the specific attack function is getting called. In this case, when I hit the tree, a rigid body was added so the tree is falling, so realistic. Last time we created a bunch of really cool core systems. Okay, to be honest, we just created the fundament for it. The inventory was a simple list, the health system was just a value which got reduced by a bonfire, and the attack system just scanned the environment for attackable objects. In today's video we will improve the inventory system and add a complete UI for it. Also we had a smooth health bar to our HUD so the player can track his health state. The first thing we gotta improve is the inventory system. I am aiming for a clean inventory style, inspired by Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's a super fancy and clean inventory look. This simple style without much color but a blurry background helps to focus on the important things, the items in the inventory. To achieve the blurred background, I created a UI panel for it and added a custom shader to it. As always with tricky shaders, I coded it all on my own, spent hours debugging. I stole it from Luca. Thank you for this masterpiece, Luca, I really appreciate it. I animated this blur and tried to swing the content panel and the header into the scene. Yeah, and this went perfect on the first try. Okay, let me fix that real quick. Ah, much better. After that I made sure that the inventory shows the correct items and is a bit responsive when hovering over the inventory slots. I personally like it really when the UI is responsive and it gives a juicy feeling, I guess. With this working prototype I used the mouse events in Unity to make a little drag and drop system. With that drag and drop system I can now move items wherever I want in my inventory. Super cool. Nice. Of course I stumbled upon some edge cases. What to do if the player closes the inventory while dragging? What to do with the item if the player does not drop it inside of a slot? How to handle inputs when the player closes the inventory? Making sure that the player can use his mouse in the inventory, I also created a new input map control scheme inside of Unity's new input system, so I can switch between different control schemes for different scenes. For testing purposes, I created a strawberry and a banana to have some content for my new inventory system. And it's working fine! In the future I would really like to implement a working function to use items with a double click. I played around with it last week, but let's take a listen another time. After implementing the UI, I need to clean up a bit. I mean, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, right? So I rearranged some stuff, renamed weird variables and moved classes to a more specific subfolder. Next, I also created a little HUD which shows the player's current health. I animated it with the do tween so it isn't that snappy. Now we got a smooth health bar when the player is getting hit. Nice. Then I added a fake energy bar. I don't even know if we ever will need this, but the health bar alone in the upper left corner looked so lonely. Last time we made some UI for the game, including an inventory with drag and drop and a HUD system. In this video we're going to create a complete day and night system. But before we dive into it, I want to tell you that I'm going to try a more relaxed editing style this time. Feel free to write me in the comments what you like better, the last 3 videos, which I have all linked in the description, or this one. Okay, let's go! First I create a new class for it, naming it Calendar Manager. This class is supposed to hold data about time of the day, number of days, and most important, the current value to which the skybox is getting mapped. In the update function I'm going to count the seconds. Each second in real life should be a minute within the game. Having this in mind, I wrote a function which also counts the hours and days within the game. Every hour I want to check if the state of the skybox should change. That's why I directly introduced the check transitions function. Also, I convert the private fields into public properties, because I maybe need to touch them from the other scripts. Later, I want to create a little clock inside of my HUD system, so I also implemented an Unity event to which the HUD system listens. There are these 4 transitions: night to morning, morning to day, day to evening, and evening to night. So I added an enum for these 4 transitions and also created a function which determines which transition should be played at what time. I thought of having the sunrise at 6 o'clock and the transition to daytime at 8 o'clock. Okay, I'm recording this in July, of course I think the sun is at the most top at 8 o'clock. Yeah, evening time starts at 18 o'clock and when the sunset is over the night will start at 21 o'clock. I maybe need to adjust these values, but I think for this game it kinda fits. Also, I should mention that each transition will last 1 hour in-game, which is just 60 seconds in real life, so the player has the chance to enjoy the beautiful transitions. But how is this working at all? The trick is to just blend 2 textures within one shader. To have a bit cooler ambient, I also changed the global light based on gradient levels. Here's the code for it. And here you can see the different gradients for each transition. I used the FS002 skybox textures from the awesome Free Fantasy Skybox pack. I'll put a link in the description so you can use it too. I love these skyboxes really. So, and here are the results. With this basic calendar system we can achieve many time-boxed events. Also we could create time-based systems like bank interests or birthdays or fun stuff like that. But I think these are some thoughts for the future. Okay, what happened since the last video? As you saw, both the grass and the water were not yet properly shaded, so they didn't fit the scene. The shaders themselves were lit, but the fog node was missing in the shader graph. But before I changed just one little thing, I decided to create the grass completely myself. In the first video I explained that I got the grass shader from the internet, but I feel ready to code my first working grass shader. With shader graph, visually, yeah. I also think that the new grass fits much more into the landscape. Color-wise, it fits much better and the style is more in line with what the game is aiming for. In addition, you can see here that it's not a simple snooty grass shader, no. It's a super cool interactive grass shader, woo! You can see where you're going and it's one more component that makes the game more juicy and responsive. I also adjusted the time system so that at night the butterflies fly home and get a good night's sleep and fireflies appear instead, beautifying the scene. Although the fireflies still lack the light or possibly a simple bloom effect, but I find that this is already developing in the right direction. Also, any fire now has a light component, so it's flickering in the night and gives a really cool vibe. I think with a decent sound design in the future it will be a mega cool ambience. Lastly, I focused on gathering the resources. Again, I think it's good if it's a little more responsive and you feel like you can really make a difference in the game world. So I had the idea to simply spawn a broken object when the actual object disappears. This creates the feeling that the player is changing the game world with his damage and can farm resources that way. I would still like to do the same for future raw materials like minerals, trees with the trunk or boxes, but step by step as this is just a hobby project and we could have for this, right? I have taken care that the trees can now finally grow. So in the future it will be possible for the player to plant his own trees so that he, in the best case, will never run out of wood resources. Currently a tree grows every 4 minutes by one stage. This means that a tree with 5 stages needs a complete game day, it's 20 minutes in real life, to grow completely. But to obtain the resource wood, the player must cut down the tree. That's why I included a tree cutting system, which I think already looks very convincing, and the player has to attack the tree. Later this will be done by an axe, by a pickaxe or something, you name it. And each tree has a certain amount of life. This is calculated by the stage the tree is in times 50. So a fully grown tree with 5 stages has, who would have guessed it, 250 life points.
Wow!
The tree drops the resource and also seeds, which can be replanted. Currently this is not yet possible. I have not yet introduced the planting and harvesting system, but I think that will definitely come in the near future. The tree will drop 2 sticks per stage and the drop probability is 50% for each seed. A maximum of 3 seeds can be dropped, so the probability of 3 seeds dropping is 12.5%. Also, here you can see golden particles flying around items that laying on the ground. I thought it was a cool indicator to let the player know, okay, this item can be picked up. However, it seems kinda out of place and not major yet. Does it need to be smaller? Can't it be yellow? Is white the better color for it? Does it seem like this item is special? Questions over questions, and yeah, I think I will remove this feature again. In addition, I have worked on something else. Similar to trees, minerals can now be dropped. I don't necessarily want the usual minerals, I want to have fancy quartz. Here in the video you can see amethyst, but I think that will be changed as well. There are also prazulite and carnelian in the game, and yeah, with these quartz it will be possible to upgrade the player or his weapon. Yeah, I'm a very chaotic person. I have no idea yet where these quartz will lead, but I really want to have them in my game. The story of my game, which I have already written a bit by the way, starts at the beach. I will only explain the story to you piece by piece so that it makes sense for the devlogs, but I don't want to spoil you if you want to play the game for yourself one time. The game is set on an island, accordingly it is surrounded by water all around, and I personally love the vibe of games set on an island, and besides that, it's much easier for me as a developer to set the world boundaries. In fact, not at all, the surrounding water does that for me automatically. Except for the water as world boundaries, the player should get a chance to explore the world by himself, so there will only be a few obstacles blocking the way somewhere. However, if you have no idea where you should go, you can simply follow the path that takes the player by the hand. The goal is that the paths should lead the player in important directions. I always want to put forests or rock formations between paths so that the world feels a little bit fuller. Maybe later on there will be animals in the forest to make the world game feel, yeah, more alive, but one thing at a time. The map won't be huge either. Actually, I think it's already too big. I'm thinking of making the island even smaller afterwards, so I don't overestimate myself and the game will be finished before the end of my life. To make the beach feeling perfect, I created palm trees and colorful starfish and placed them there. You can cut down the palm trees and collect the starfish and driftwood lying around, so actually if you feel like it you can empty the whole beach. I'm thinking of adding a jetty with a fishing NPC sitting on it, but I think when it comes to populating the map, including villages and so on, there will be some changes to the map. You can also see how I create a small ruin here. Will it be important later? I don't know. The rest of the world I added small hills, rocks, trees, colorful flowers and mountain formations to make the world look a bit chaotic rather than simply linear. In the background you can see a big mountain. Here I want to add a waterfall, which might be the center of the game. But you surely remember my last waterfall. Yes, it was terrible. That's why I want to experiment a little bit in secret until I show you my new waterfall. In general, the map is still very rough, it still lacks of various objects, houses, animals, NPC, environment objects and so on. Yeah, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, if you compare this world with a test world right now, you realize that with the modular system I've built, I can already realize quite a few gameplay elements. And I want to show you what I did to the game environment to jump from this to this. I also want to mention that this is not a guide, it's more of a way how I do it and what I do, so it meets my personal taste of a good looking game. Okay, let's go. One of the first things players notice when they enter the game world is the sky. A skybox is like a canvas that paints the backdrop of your game's atmosphere. It's super important in setting the tone and mood of your game, so that's why it is the first thing that I styled, because the Unity default skybox, you know, if you know, you know. Whether it's a clear blue sky, a mesmerizing sunset or a mysterious night sky, a well-chosen skybox can immerse players and make the whole in-game world feel alive. I could not decide, so I coded an entire day and night system which includes all of that. I also made a video about that, you can watch it after this one. In my game I used the free fantasy skybox pack. I'll leave a link to the Unity asset store in the description. Fog isn't just about hiding distant objects for performance reasons. It's about adding depth and atmosphere to the game world. In addition, the fog is good to trigger the adventure spirit of the player. He can ask himself, what is behind the fog? With fog in my game, I can create a sense of mystery. Also, with this layer of visual interest, I can kinda merge the environment objects together. For my personal taste, it seems like a glue which can hold world entities together. Therefore, we can use the fog color to set the right mood or the right glue color for the current environment the player is in. Lighting is a game changer when it comes to setting the mood of our game world. Whether it's bright and sunny or super dark because it's rainy and a storm is coming. Also, the entities in your world can, I would say, interact with other objects. Here, for example, you can see the light flickering from a flame on a torch. The whole thing gives the environment a bit more atmosphere and shows the player that the game world is not one-dimensional. To come back to my day and night system, the color of the light changes also in interaction with the time of the day and give the player more graphical depth. Shadows are more than just the dark areas on the ground. No, they provide us quite everything I mentioned before, depth and realism. Did you notice that the whole world seemed flat before? It looked very disgusting in my opinion, but with the shadows activated and adjusted, it adds a sense of connection between the objects. For performance reasons, I decided to use hard shadows, which have, I think it's 50% opacity. Maybe one day if I get my performance on a better level, I can use soft shadows, but everything in its time. Wow, as often as I use that could be my channel slogan. God ray particles, also known as volumetric lights or sun rays, are those mesmerizing beams of light that stream through openings like trees or windows. In the video you see that the God ray is pretty alone and not in between a forest or something, because in this place I want something holy to happen. For example, a gift from an NPC or something, but I can use these particles everywhere now where I want some aesthetic fake light. These particles add a touch of magic to my game world, guiding players' attention and making scenes feel ethereal. They could transform the sad forest into a magical area. These small details can have a huge impact when it comes to stylizing games. Butterflies fluttering around can add life and movement to our environment, and in the night I replace the butterflies with fireflies, so even if it's dark, something is happening. Players might not consciously focus on them, but subconsciously. They enhance the immersion and make the world feel authentic. Of course, other particles can help too, like a bit of dust flying around, maybe in combination with a God ray. Okay, the last one, post-processing effects, are like the cherry on the top. I use the color correction to make the colors pop and to add a cinematic flair. To focus on the center of the screen, I also use a vignette in my post-processing. And to get the typical stylized look, I also use a small amount of bloom, but it's a balancing act between dreamy good looking and, okay, what is this? These effects will dramatically enhance the overall look of our game. And there you have it! By incorporating these stylization techniques from skyboxes and fog to post-processing effects and particles, like butterflies, like fireflies, like flying dust around, you name it, I try to not just create a simple linear game world, but an experience for the players. Anyway, I want to show you what animals are added to the game, what these animals do and how they react to their environment, and most importantly, everything that went wrong trying to implement that. Okay, let's go! Oh, and a quick heads up, I decided to keep my videos as short as before, around about 2 minutes, but to bring several videos. Then you also have new videos during the week and do not always have to wait for the weekend, because that's what you're doing. Wait for your favorite YouTube. As a first step, I imported the model of a wolf. I think that wolves fit quite well into the game in terms of style. Imagine you're walking relaxed through a forest and then BAM! Wolves with magic. Yeah, that will be an epic battle. But until that can happen, the wolf has to be able to move, because currently it just stands around in the world and rotates to the direction of the players in. Wolves have a sight radius. When the player enters it, the wolves smell the player and start to hunt him. So now the wolf is moving towards the... okay, what the f***? Okay, I fixed it and I directly added a walking animation, and honestly, it would be much cooler to have a wolf as a companion, right? Maybe I resynced the system, but in this shot it looks very cool how both run together, right? Anyway, now it's working as intended. To manage all the states and also play the right animation at the right time, I decided to build an animal state machine for each animal. An animal can be either in the state idle, walking, sprinting, attacking or dying.
This means that the wolf will also damage the player if it bites him. Since we have not only a wolf, but in the future other animals that are not so aggressive, I've decided to also introduce an aggression type. This can be aggressive, neutral or shy. Aggressive animals hunt other animals. Neutral animals don't care about anything, and shy animals run away from everything. With this minimal ecosystem, it also works that animals can interact with each other. Okay, let's say as it is, the wolf rips the fox a new one. But hey, I can now also hunt the fox and can have a great battle against the wolf. But what could these drops? Maybe we'll find out in a future video. Today I want to show you what I've done the last week. It's more style related and less functional, so let's dive deep into it. To bring the light in the game world a little closer to reality, I thought it would be really cool to rotate the shadows along with the change of the skybox so that it seems that the sun is different in the morning than at noon or in the evening. To make this happen, I did nothing but simply rotate the directional light with the time. Needless to say, it worked right off the bat, because of course I didn't have a super stupid bug in my code. So with the bug fixed, the flickering is ended and instead we have a fake sun that rotates with the time and so changes the shadows. In general, I reduced the amount of ambient light so that the light sources like torches or bonfires have more impact to the game world. Here you can see the before and after. I made this decision because I think it's important for a game to build tension and a certain mood, and light is a crucial element for that. I also changed my water shader. The old shader was very flat, not very transparent, and the waves were rather unpleasant. The shader was too cartoony for the style I was going for, so I replaced it. The new shader is just as colorful as the old one, but is more translucent and becomes more opaque as the depth increases. It also reflects the light, the sun and certain objects so that flares can occur in the water. In addition, the waves look much more realistic and it is more fun to just watch the water. The water shader is from the same asset pack as my grass, so I thought the style would also fit well with my current game world. I put the link to the asset in the video description. What else happened? I finally expanded my game world again by, to be honest, a very small area. In this zone there's a signpost which, in the best case, will show the way in the certain directions in the near future. Also at this point you can see the first building in the entire game world. It is a bell tower, which probably jumps directly into the player's eyes because it's located on the coast. Let's see what story points I'll tie to this place, but I'm sure I'll come up with something not too terrible. In this episode I want to show you what I've added to the game world last week, so that the world looks more complete. Okay, to be honest, I just implemented like 10%, but I think I reduced the size of the island a bit and we're good to go. So let's have a look what changed in the meantime, let's go! I have implemented signposts that are always placed at forks in paths. This allows the player to find his way around the game world without looking at the map, which does not yet exist. Other games implement signposts so that the UI element looks flat. I decided to integrate the UI elements into the 3D space and to provide the corresponding direction with a 3D label. This effect makes it seem as if the player himself is faced with a decision of which path to take, not the person playing the game. It fits much more into the game world, I think. What you also may have noticed are the new UI elements that pop up when you walk near a pick-upable item. A buddy of mine said that items laying on the floor can't be recognized properly. The conversation went as follows. Hey, did you play my game?
Yeah, it sucks. It looks like a Flash game from 2009. Also, you can't even see shit on the ground. Besides that, did I tell you to not call me a friend in public?
Isn't this friend the coolest? Oh god, I love him. Anyway, with this constructive feedback I decided to add a pop-up when you get close to an item in the game world. This way, even if items are in tall grass, you'll see them and you won't miss anything. Now we're coming to the elephant in the room. Your m***. And now we are coming to the biggest change I've made in the last week. The capital city of the island called Azaria. That's the coolest fantasy name ever, right? In the footage you can see it called a cereal, but I've changed the name to something more fantastic. Through a path between rock formations you can enter the capital of the city. The capital itself is just still very empty and seems lifeless, but at the time when I take care of NPCs and stuff like that, the city will seem very alive. At least I hope so. When you enter the city from the beach, on the right side there should be some dealers, who will provide you with food, weapons, magic and stuff like that. The large empty square in the center of the city will become a kind of marketplace, where festivals can be held and where people just walk around, sort of a playground for NPCs. In the town there is a mill that turns the harvest into flour so that the folk does not starve. There is a blacksmith that offers you the best weapons in all of this area. And a sawmill, which, well, a sawmill just saws wood, but it looks nice, I guess. At the lower end of the city there's a harbor where ships can anchor. Also a nice opportunity for fishing, right? This is not foreshadowing. On the upper side there is a watchtower from which you can look at the lighthouse and the beach. In some corners the city still looks very lifeless and also has some flaws, but basically I'm more than satisfied with this small but still very lovely one. I also decided to mark different zones as well, so that when you enter a new zone you get an alert that you are in the new zone. Two small changes right before the actual topic starts. As I mentioned last video, I just created like 10% of the whole island, and for a solo indie game the map is way too huge. Because of that I reduced the size of the island, so it's a good amount smaller now. Here's the before and after. The second minor change is just the town, which is now a bit enriched with entities, so it doesn't look too bad. Of course, it still feels lifeless, but as I mentioned in my last video, when there are some NPCs scurry around, the place feels much more alive, hopefully. Nevertheless, let's look at the main topic. Actually, I revisited the tree cutting system and I wanted to improve it. The current implementation works as follows. You come near a tree, press the action button on your preferred controller, and then the tree is falling. That's it. I think that's way too lame. I think it's super important that you have to use the right tool to cut down a tree. So I needed to implement a system that the player can even hold items in a sense, including a side menu with all the possible active items. Yeah, so I did it. The player can now hold any item in his hands, which is located in the first 8 slots of the inventory. So now I can track if the correct item is held in the player's hands to execute any action. Also, I wanted the player to really have the chance to choose the target object precisely. So I was thinking that it would be a cool mechanism that the player has the ability to aim. And yeah, so I implemented an aiming system and made it necessary that the player is aiming when you want to cut down a tree. This improvement could also be important when it comes to a cool fighting system with swords, axes or even bows. I think that aiming could be a key mechanism in this game in the future. The next changes are just impact design decisions, so that a random cutting sound is being played when you hit a tree or something, or that the camera is shaking when you cut down a tree. I think it's about time I add sound to all of my implemented features, isn't it? I am aware that developing a game is a big challenge, especially for one single person. And because I had to struggle with too high goals in the past, I decided again to lower the goals a bit. In this case it hit the map size again. I've now reduced the map size a second time so that I can finish the game in my lifetime. I have the ambition to make every place on the map beautiful and maybe include small Easter eggs or something like that. And that's why I rather focus on quality instead of quantity. Therefore it was the only right decision for me to reduce the size of the map again. To stay thematically with the map, I added a few areas to the map. One is in the middle of the map, and here I've created a small forest so that the player can now find enough wood resources. Also it looks nicer when trees are closer together and there are no wide open spaces on the map. This forest leads to a small lake which is in the middle of the map, and here you can finally see a waterfall. You still know the old waterfall, and what can I say, this new waterfall is not perfect but 1,000 times better than the old one. Here I also replaced the bridge with a small footbridge without railings. I think that this actually does not fit so badly into the scene. Of course it's just a bunch of straight wooden boards, but it feels like it's more correct. At least in my opinion. The old bridge was a bit too bulky for my taste. This path in front of the small lake leads back into the city through an underpass. This underpass isn't completely finished yet, but I think the vines hanging down here are pretty cool. I drew these in GIMP and created a very gentle animation in shader graph. My goal was to make it feel natural and like it was not touched by humans, even though it is near the capital city. Another new area is in front of the upper gardens. As this is now a separated area, there could be an entrance to some dungeon or something like that. Currently there's just a dealer stand, so the player should be able to trade their things or look at the beautiful scenery. The last new area is the northern beach, with some palms and the same items as on the southern beach. This is also not finished yet. There are some shipwrecks and treasure chests missing, but I like to bring everything to a rough shape. And now we're coming to the elephant in the room, the character. I know I'm deep into development, and at this stage I normally should have a decent character model in my game, but I'm not able to design a nice character model. For example, the second last attempt, I modeled a nice character, rigged it, maybe wrong, imported it in Mixamo, and woo! We got a working character. After that I downloaded the character base, imported it, and okay, now it's working. Okay, I got it working pretty nicely, but that's unfortunately not the style I am aiming for. So fuck that, I'm going to try it another time, and okay, now the model and everything's not that wrong, but the animation. And because I want to make it good, I think I need more time to learn how to properly model, rig and animate a good character. And if this is done, designing comes in place. How can I design some good armor for the character, for example? This all will take much longer than expected, but I think that's okay. I just take my time and implement the new character if the whole thing is ready. What else happened? I added a terrain manager which can now show you at every time of the game on which layer the character is walking right now on the terrain. This is pretty interesting when it comes down to sound design or footsteps or something like that. Also, when we handle the whole decal stuff, we want to know if the character leaves footprints or not. Like on sand, for example, we can have footprints, but not when we walk on stone. So this took much longer than expected, but it's working right now. I listened to your suggestions and you were right, these improved the look of my game so much. And also thank you for over 200 subscribers. I'm so happy that my little hobby project has interested so many people. So in this video we will fix some bugs and change some colors of the textures. So let's start with fixing some bugs. So the issue I encountered was related to the day and night cycle in my game. The animations weren't syncing correctly, which means that the in-game time didn't always match the visuals. This was a significant problem because a smooth day and night transition is crucial for creating an immersive gaming experience. The first step in solving any problem is understanding its root cause. In my case, I realized that the issue was related to the calendar manager. The day and night animations were supposed to change based on in-game time, but it wasn't always working as intended when loading a save game. The issue was that whenever a specific time was met, a coroutine starts with a fixed duration. In my case, it is 60 seconds. Now, if for example the evening to night transition should start at 21 o'clock and the player loads the file with 21:47, it only had 30 seconds to finish a 60 seconds coroutine. And we all know that this is impossible, at least for some of us. Fixing it, I just added a start value flag that is getting loaded so the animation is in sync with the actual time. The second bug I fixed was also related to the loading system. The tree spawned the already chopped version of the prefab. This led to so many trees that were lying on the ground when a save game was loaded. I was deep in the code, checking every function that was related to this mechanic, checking every variable, but I didn't find anything. It turned out that a child of a deactivated game object was not deactivated. Thus, a game object which should be deactivated became an active at creation. So I just solved the issue by deactivating the game object. Next thing is not really a bug, but the amount of spawning butterflies was way too high. So I reduced this amount in my particle system. Now it doesn't feel too much and I really like it. I also expanded the world to include a nice forest and mini lake area on the mountain. It really looks a bit holy and I wonder how to get up there. I think we will find out for sure someday. Finally, I added an invisible world border. Actually, I'm not a big fan of invisible borders because it feels so static and that the player is not that free. But honestly, I got no time to create a cool swimming animation in combination with a drowning player when he swims too far away from the island. This is the only way I can ensure that the player stays on the island and does not break out of the world. I handle this with many colliders, which will prevent the player from moving beyond the boundary. I also tested it with one big sphere collider, but it appears that there are places where the player could be stuck and I want to ensure that this cannot happen. So I go with the multiple collider option along. Also, you wrote in the comments that the beach is too yellow and you were totally right. I reduced the saturation so it doesn't feel like it's extra yellow tinted. And another good suggestion was to make the grass color more sort of the color the grass texture has in the terrain. And I also did that and it looks 1,000 times better. Thank you so much for these suggestions. In one of the last devlogs I mentioned that I was experimenting with the scaling in the game. I've got to admit, getting the scaling just right is a bit of a challenge, but I'm determined to nail it. To address this, I started by scaling up the trees a bit, and now as you can see, it's already making a huge difference in the overall look and feel of the game. The forest now appears more dense and realistic in my opinion, and the trees really stand out. But that's not all. I wanted to make the gameplay experience even more engaging, so I introduced some cool mechanics. When you take your axe to one of those scaled up trees, the tree now is shaking and gives feedback to the players. The tree not only falls realistically, but it also rotates as it comes crashing down. This adds an extra layer of immersion to the gameplay, making it feel more natural and satisfying. But wait, there's more. To enhance players' feedback more and make tree cutting even more fun, I've added another layer of detail. As you chop down a tree, leaves now cascade from its branches. It's a small touch, but it adds a lot of the overall experience. Personally, I think this effect is pretty cool, and it's all about creating a juicy feel in the game, and I'm striving to include these types of immersive effects in all the players' interactions with the environment. As mentioned before, I've been hard at work implementing a harvesting system into the game. It's a pretty cool addition that adds a whole new dimension to the gameplay. With this system, players can actively contribute to the sustainability of their in-game environment. Imagine you've just cut on a tree. Well, now there's a chance that it will drop an acorn, and these acorns are more than just collectibles, they are the key to growing your own trees. To plant a tree, simply select an acorn from your side inventory and find a suitable spot in the game world. You can grow harvestables on specific ground layers. Here you can see that, for example, a tree can only be planted on grass, but not on sand or stone or anything else. Once you plant that acorn, you get a little feedback with a camera shake and small particles. The acorn will start growing into a sapling and then into a full-fledged tree. But it doesn't happen instantly. The time it takes for the sapling to grow into a major tree is random, typically ranging between 5 and 10 minutes. So you've got to be patient and check back later to see the progress. This feature not only adds depth to the gameplay, but also encourages players to think strategically. By planting and nurturing trees or other harvestables, you can ensure a steady supply of resources for the future. It's a small step towards making your in-game world more sustainable and interactive. So that's the latest update on my indie adventure game. Scaling up the trees and interactive mechanics are just a few of the ways I'm trying to create a more engaging and immersive world. I'm really excited about how these changes are shaping up the game, and I hope you are too. Hello and welcome back to another devlog of my solo indie adventure game. Honestly, I think this video shows the biggest visual update with the smallest amount of effort. Seriously. In the opener you already saw how the current game world is looking right now, and to give you a comparison, this is how the game world looked before this update. I've been asking myself why I don't like the style of my game when it actually doesn't look that terrible. The post-processing is there, dynamic light, and also the models fit together. But the tree models were very static, and there were thousands of them all over the map. Trees are the main feature of the world, and they are not dynamic. They don't have shaders, they look almost the same except for the size, they don't have leaves blowing in the wind, and in general, other games look better. So I set the trees as a starting point for making changes to my game world, and the goal was to improve the trees. Since someone of you had also commented under a video that it's funny that the tree, which actually looks like a conifer, drops an acorn and not a pine cone or something like that. And that gave me the idea to just not put conifers on the map. So thanks for the thought, jmanpink1132 or jmanpink1132 or however you are pronounced. Please write me in the comment. I already had the grass and the red flowers. I don't know to this day if they are roses or not. I'm not a biologist. Anyway, these assets I already had from an asset pack, and there were also wonderful trees inside. These trees not only look incredibly good, but also fit perfectly with the other assets in the game world. Also, the trees have shaders that make the leaves shake in the wind, which makes the world 1000% more alive. Especially since there are trees everywhere. In combination with the already existing post-processing effect and the fog, this game scene looks wonderful, I think. Also, the God Ray, the volumetric light that can be seen from time to time, comes into its own much better now. But what makes this scene so special for me? First of all, the skybox is a super important part of the environment. Not only does it look great in my opinion, but it also changes through 4 times a day so that the correct time of the day is represented. This goes hand in hand with the dynamic lighting. So a sunset, for example, looks much more aesthetic now. The light that shines through the now existing leaves of the tree with the bloom effect in the post-processing looks so natural but good. In addition, the shader, which not only applies to the leaves but also on the grass objects, lets these parts of the world wave. This makes the game world seem a bit more dynamic and real. What also improves the scene are various particles that bring movement into the static scene. Small dirt particles or butterflies, at night also fireflies. I also added small leaf particles to the cherry blossom tree so that small pink leaves blow in the wind, which looks very dreamy. All this interaction is why I think the map looks so much better now than before. Before it was just a static tree bunch thingy that differed in size and maybe small color differences. Since we're on the subject of undynamic game objects, I also noticed that not all objects in the game world are interactable. But that's exactly what I want. I want the player to be able to cut down every tree, mine every rock, pick up every mushroom and destroy every crate. This is for the simple reason that I want to give the player as much feedback as possible, so the player gets that juicy game feel and maybe has a little more fun playing the game. To change this, I decided to let the player destroy crates in the first step. For this, I loaded a crate I already created in my game into Blender and cut the crate into a little less than 100 parts. I spawned this new object in my game world as soon as the original crate was destroyed. This has the effect that the crate now looks destroyed and the player feels a bit more powerful when he has destroyed a part of the game world. These crates have the chance to drop something, so by destroying such world objects, the player can also collect items or money depending on where the game's going. I am absolutely elated to see our community growing with over 333 subscribers. Your support means the world to me and it's so fascinating that so many people enjoy the journey of this game development. So now let's see where this journey brought us last week. I have been working on many little smaller things, nothing is really significant enough to put in the foreground, but every little bit counts I think. I've added a new element to the inventory, the money. This money will later allow players to trade with NPCs. Players can sell the items they have found on their journey and no longer need to these NPCs. On the other hand, they can also buy the usual items such as axes, swords, tools or food or something like that, you name it, to better equip themselves for their journey. I would have liked to include magical items with the traders so that players could upgrade certain tools or weapons or something like that, but I think that might be overthinking it. I don't want to overcomplicate the game and fail to finish. This way a small economy is also created, and money can currently be obtained by breaking certain crates. Some of these crates are located at the lookout tower near the beach, which is on the way to a new location. I've added a new location to the map and admittedly it looks like any other location on the map, but it works. Of course I want to place different objects in various places on the island, but since this island isn't divided into different biomes or something like that, I don't think it's a big issue if the map on the whole has a consistent look. Here there's a small cave that you can sneak into and explore a little bit. And the cave isn't populated yet, but yeah, it's like 95% of the entire map. But I think the terrain of the cave turned out quite well. Maybe there's a treasure to be found there. What else is new? I've implemented my own dialogue system into the game. Hooray! Finally some small talk or conversation so you're not completely alone. Currently the conversation partner is just a regular cube. You know about my fantastic character design skills after all. So I think this will be a cube for some time. Yeah, and the player can talk to the conversation partner when they are close enough by pressing the action button. By simply clicking with the mouse, the player can continue the conversation. However, the player can just as easily end the conversation by just walking away. But the cube can remember that the cube has feelings too, so be kind to each other. In any case, this simple dialogue system adds more life to the game. It paves the way for the story, the quests, or just normal conversations with people who are there to make the world feel more alive, or for Easter eggs. Furthermore, I've made a few changes to address some issues that bothered me while playing. For example, the lighting in the dashboard view. I'm more than satisfied with the basic lighting, and of course a few more light sources need to be placed on the map here and there, but the basic lighting is on point, I think. However, when you look at the player in the dashboard view, or the inventory view for now, it's not as visible at night due to being too dark. To fix this, I've added a small spotlight so the player is nicely illuminated. I think it has also a nice sound to it. As for the sounds, here's a quick compilation of how the player's audio experience is shaping up. Another thing that bothered me was that when items were dropped, they were often not visible in the tall grass. So I've implemented a renderer feature that overlays a white shader on all items that are not directly visible. This greatly eases the search for dropped items and will guide the player to items they haven't picked up yet. I believe this is a substantial help. However, I'll need to fine-tune that radius because you might notice in some sequences that items too far away are still marked. I recently expanded the map by a small section, creating a magical forest clearing. Okay, during that process I temporarily completely destroyed the trees, but hey, they're working again, so it's fine. I must say, even though I find the style very beautiful, almost every area on the map looks similar. As I mentioned in a previous devlog, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, as it maintains consistency. However, I also feel that no area has its own distinct identity, you know what I mean? I think I need to create more models so that each small section of the map has something unique and special about it. But to make a point here, the map has been finally expanded once again. Staying on the map topic, an integral part of the map is its boundaries. In a previous devlog I mentioned that I set up a simple box collider to prevent the player from leaving the island, or multiple box colliders. The issue was that I was rather sparing with the box colliders, so some areas were not well protected or accurate enough. The player could have ventured too far into the sea. Therefore, I wrote a script that, upon startup, takes all boundary points and creates a new box collider between each of them. This ensures that every point I have individually selected defines the boundaries accurately. The cool thing is that they are dynamically generated at the start, meaning I can also easily move the boundaries in the editor and it will automatically adjust. Furthermore, I have continued to write some more of the story. I won't reveal much at this point as I don't want to spoil anything. However, I can tell you that certain elements on the map will be crucial to the story. For instance, some stones, maybe magical stones, that may require activation to perform actions that will lead to things happening, things preventing other things, or setting things in motion. Hooray, things! In order to provide the player with feedback when interacting with minerals, I've added an additional impact element alongside the camera shake or the sound. Specifically, with each hit the player makes on the object, a small label appears indicating how much damage the player has dealt to the object. This allows the player to see firstly how much damage they are causing, and secondly to potentially showcase critical hits if the number is unusually high. It's not much, but it's at least a small expansion of the mineral acquisition mechanic. Yeah, and as I said, I couldn't implement that much, so this is it. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, then I really would be happy if you leave a like here and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any updates on this game. And yeah, see you in the next video.